When an Ohio school bus driver began to suffer a medical event, a brother and sister took action that may have saved her life. Footage taken from a surveillance camera inside the bus shows 8-year-old Katrina sitting in the seat nearest the driver, who began to have trouble breathing. Katrina asked if she was all right, and a shake of the head replied in the negative. The footage, released by Crestview Local Schools in Ashland, then shows Katrina run to the back of the bus and alert someone she knew she could count on, her 7th-grade brother, Charlie. Charlie rushes to the front, used the radio to call the school and alert them to the emergency, while an 8th-grader named Kelly also called 911. The driver was hospitalized and later discharged, and allegedly instructed all her regular riders how to use the radio to call the school in case of an emergency. And she said she was glad they remembered her instructions. Wow, that was thinking ahead. Charlie said, when I realized that something was going on, I went up there, grabbed the radio, called the school, because I knew that was the quickest way to get help. And Katrina, my brother, in the inside, when something's going wrong, he's scared. But on the outside, he's like calm and concentrated. And the actions of these students were truly outstanding. They remained calm, communicated clearly, and helped one another in a situation that could have been a whole lot worse. Their families should be incredibly proud. I think all of us should be very proud of young people who just seem to know what to do in the time of a crisis. So good job, both of you. That's amazing. All right, so here's some good news. A center for homeless residents was set to close, and then Rick Steves stepped in. Yes. Travel teaches many lessons, and for famous American travel writer Rick Steves, one of those is that love thy neighbor need not depend on proximity. The Bible phrase has been on Steve's mind of late, following his philanthropic rescue of a community hygiene center where those struggling to provide a basic living for themselves could come and shower or wash their clothes. Reading in a local news outlet that the owner of the land on which it was built was planning to sell, the wildly successful author and presenter on PBS of Rick Steves' Europe stepped up to buy. I vividly remember what it was like as a kid backpacking around the world to need a shower. This is a place that gives countless people that are down and out a shower. Even though Linwood Hygiene Center was 2 blocks from his own church, Steves never knew it was there. He read about it on the My Edmond News website and how it went beyond only hygiene to provide heated spaces, meals, and a twice-monthly pop-up medical clinic. Steves, who told the Washington Post that he's reached a point of diminishing returns in consuming for his own pleasure, got in touch with the landowner through My Edmond News and quickly posted an offer of $2.25 million that was quickly accepted. Meanwhile, the stressed-out executive director, Sandra Mears, had been searching for weeks among local Pacific Northwest donors, nonprofits, and philanthropists to try and find some kind of a solution. You know, there's really, really good people in the world, and our world sometimes forgets about things like charity and equity and care for each other, compassion for one another. And this man stepped up and did it right. So, way to go, Rick. Good job. You are an outstanding human being, and hopefully there's a whole lot more of you around. All right, so moving right along, here's a beautiful young woman who received a blessing when she was ready to go to school and is now paying it back. When family medical troubles seemed to have struck down a top student's hope for university, the administrators took action to lift them back up again. Now the holder of a doctorate and a successful entrepreneur, she has given back to the school that did so much for her by covering the cost of the entire senior year for hundreds of students. From the Philadelphia Inquirer, the story centers on Sonia Lewis, founder of Student Loan Doctor and graduate of Bodine International Affairs High School in the northern part of Philadelphia. Raised by her single mom and grandmother, both of whom were teachers, Lewis always excelled academically. Class president, student government, honor roll, you name it, she was on it. But she was forced into a caregiving role when her mother was hospitalized with bacterial meningitis just after her grandmother had recovered from cancer. School suddenly moved to the back bench amid hospital appointments, form filling, and care for the household, which her mother couldn't do. Set to graduate in the class of '05, school principal Karen B. Hill noticed that one of the school's standout students hadn't applied for federal student loans and wanted to know why. I told the principal, "We don't have any money. We missed the deadline," Lewis told the Inquirer, remembering the conversation she'd had with Hill. "There was no money coming in from my mom. We had my grandmother's retirement, but that wasn't enough." Her grandmother, she said, considered taking out a second mortgage on her house, but Lewis wouldn't allow it. She planned to spend a year working and apply for the loans next year. Hill was having none of it, however, and Lewis got wind of her plans when it see this when I hear all these great stories, I want to get all teary because it's just so beautiful. At the end of the year awards ceremony, each and every one was awarded to her. She ended up collecting $16,200 in academic fund and endowment stipends and prizes that are typically shared among the student body, but which the principal had channeled to a single student down on her luck. It allowed her to enroll at Bloomsburg University and pay for her first year of tuition. That set her on the path toward a doctorate in higher education. Once there, she earned scholarships, worked several jobs, and kept grinding. And before long, she was working as an academic coach and founded the Student Loan Doctor, which provides both consultation and planning for students in debt on how to manage or escape it. She's helped medical students in particular get hundreds of thousands in loans forgiven, but throughout all her success, Lewis never forgot. See, here I go again. That night when Bodine set her off with thousands to her name when she and her family had nothing. That's when Bodine High School mascot, a globe, walked out of the big cardboard check for $16,200, enough to pay for the senior trip, senior brunch, yearbooks, etc. of the whole senior student body. Woohoo! Way to go, girl. You're showing everybody how to do it and how to do it well. Well, on that note, we're going to take a short little commercial break and we'll be right back with more good news. Don't go away. All right. Well, here's a very interesting story. I was so intrigued when I saw this on the goodnewsnetwork.org. When a family welcomed a man into their home at Christmas, they never thought he'd stay for 45 years. Boy, that's a long stay, isn't it? It was the day before Christmas Eve, and recent homemakers Rob and Diane Parsons were surprised with a knock on the door. Opening it, Rob looked upon a rather strange sight. A man stood there with a wheeled garbage bin containing his possessions and a frozen chicken under his left arm. Rob didn't know it at the time, but he was in the middle of an interaction that wouldn't just change his life forever, but his community too. Rob vaguely recognized the man as Ronnie Lockwood, someone who he'd been told he had to be kind and considerate towards, as he was a bit different. I saw Ronnie. I said, "Ronnie, what's with the chicken?" He said, "Somebody gave it to me for Christmas." And then I said two words that changed all of our lives. And I'm not exactly sure why I said them. I said, "Come in." Lockwood was not a native of the Welsh capital of Cardiff as Parsons was. He had been sent there from 200 miles away at 15 years old to attend a school for the subnormal, where he had no friends, no teachers who knew him, and no social worker. The autistic youth then floundered between homelessness and odd jobs and was already 30 by the time he knocked on Parsons' door. That outburst of Christian empathy, Christmas empathy, did indeed change the family's life forever, as Ronnie Lockwood became, as the British say, part of the furniture, living there a full 45 years as a member of the family before dying from a stroke, aged 75. Only once in 45 years did Rob and Diane ever consider asking him to leave, and as strange as their arrangement appeared to others, it never bothered them. Recounting their late and dearest friend to the BBC, the parents of two, grandparents of five, described him as a kind, amazing, and a remarkable help with kids. He had a great heart, Ronnie. He was kind. He was frustrating. Sometimes I was his mother, sometimes I was his social worker, and sometimes I was his carer. Somebody said to our children one day, "How did you cope with Ronnie when your friends came to the house?" And they said, "Well, we don't really think about it, really. It's just Ronnie." On that first Christmas, Parsons had asked his friends and family to get some simple presents for their visitor, who was in turn overwhelmed with emotion from the kindness shown to him by the strangers. And it was a time of year he always looked forward to, during which he volunteered, often at the nearest church, and bought for Rob and Diane the same Marks and Spencer gift card every year with as much delight in watching them open it as he did the last. It wasn't long after Lockwood arrived that the Parsons, who were then without children, sought advice as to what they might be able to do to help the man get a leg up. They were advised by a social worker that in order to get a job, a worker must have an address. Mr. Parsons noted the irony in that statement that you have to have a job to afford an address, a catch 22 that many homeless people never escape from. And I know that's the same case here in Canada. I don't know how it is in the US, but what a dumb thing. I'll tell you. You gotta wonder. Anyway, that is a really good news story, and what a lucky man to have knocked on that particular door on that particular day. So when love comes knocking, be sure to open the door. All right. This story was so quirky and so fun, and my light just went out. Sorry about that, folks. Hopefully you can still see me a little bit. Um, So this story is about two best friends who exchanged the same birthday card back and forth for 81 years straight. Can you imagine? I When I saw that, I was just absolutely blown away. Like, how does that happen? But that's what they did. They just kept going back and forth with it. So on her 95th birthday, Pat DeReamer received a greeting card that was already 81 years old. It all started in 1944 when the Kentucky resident first received the card for her 14th birthday after her family moved to Indianapolis during World War II. The new girl didn't have many friends, but one of them, Mary Wheaton, would prove to be the lifelong kind. I didn't know very many people, so Mary kind of picked me out of the gutter and, was nice to me. We became really good friends. The memorable birthday card featured a cartoon dog on the front with a red bow and the greeting, "Here's wishing you a birthday that really is colossal." On the inside, there's a massive dinosaur skeleton with the message, because it'll be a long, long time before you're an old fossil. After enjoying the card, Pat saved it. Then she signed it and sent it back to Mary a month later for her birthday in May. A tradition was born. The playful gesture sparked a back and forth birthday card custom that has lasted for 81 years and counting. It survived World War II, went on to earn a Guinness World Record for the longest greeting card exchange after 60 years. It also manufactured a multitude of smiles twice a year for more than 3/4 of a century. We never said we're going to do this. At least I don't remember ever saying that. It just happened. Every year, it would give us some reason to call each other and talk. The decades passed, the card kept making its rounds, and the world kept changing. Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Computers became commonplace. Email was invented, and most people quit sending cards altogether. But not the two girls from Indiana. Even as the decades passed and adult life sent them to separate states, the childhood friends kept the tradition alive. Bravo, you two are brilliant. I'll tell you, it's stories like that that just warm my heart so much, that there is such a sweetness that we have as we build friendships, and the way that we connect with one another. Might seem silly to some, but boy, it's heartwarming to those who receive it. Bravo. Well, I did a story earlier this year, I believe, about this little sheep that was kind of stranded. And guess what? We have a follow up. Yes, we do. Britain's loneliest sheep is now pregnant with twins. 2 years after her cliffside rescue. I guess it was that long ago that I did this story. Wow. Having been called Britain's loneliest sheep and later the world's most famous sheep, Fiona is now pregnant with twins 2 years after her harrowing rescue. The Good News Network reported in 2023 that rural Scotsmen were planning a daring cliffside extraction of a sheep that had been stranded on an isolated beach 2 years earlier by a kayaker. The kayaker, Jill Turner, took photos of the sheep, who had grown a truly enormous fleece. How she got there down the sheer cliffs, no one knows, but eventually the Scotsmen raised money for a rescue attempt for their video blog, The Sheep Game. Thriving now at Delscone Farm, where Fiona arrived enormously overweight from a diet rich in salty grass and no space to exercise, the farm recently paired her with a Suffolk ram and got her with lamb after a difficult settling in period. She has kind of forgotten how to be a sheep, said Ben Best, the farm's manager. A strict diet and the aid of a few hormones got the ewe in shape and in the mood, and with all the attention Fiona has received over the years, Best estimated that news of her pregnancy will make her the most famous sheep in the world yet again. I love that. A happy news story from this beautiful little sheep that somehow got stranded in a place she couldn't get away from. I think I've been there. All right. Well, water is our source of life, and we can't manage without it. So, India's beautiful and historic step wells restored to working order for the thirsty nation. Ancient Indian step wells are being restored to modern water storage facilities to help cure modern water shortages. I don't know why that was a tongue twister. Recently, an Indian environmentalist and editor was invited to share his incredible work restoring hundreds of natural and man made water sources all across India. His nonprofit, Environmentalist Foundation of India, has cleaned and reshaped more than 600 bodies of water, either to a state of nature or to a clean and functioning source for human use. Most recently, this has included step wells, one of the jewels of Indian architectural heritage and civic planning, which have been used for millennia and multiple iterations of empire to supply water in the hot and often dry climate. Stepwell restoration is the next big implementation challenge that I'd like to add to EFI's responsibilities, because we have a greater responsibility now on protecting these historical assets, which are a testament to human intelligence. There's so much science behind it, the kind of material they use, the kind of artisan skill, sets with which they developed and built them. So learning all of it and working on step wells has been quite a remarkable experience. EFI has already restored 2 of these step wells and has another 6 slated for 2026. Unlike the 600 natural ponds and lakes Krishnamurthy and his volunteers have worked on, the step wells demand another sort of expertise. Their designs and materials often rely on antique methods of construction and landscaping. So, skill sets Krishnamurthy has had to go seek out as part of his first project in 2022 to restore them. So, set amongst the oldest mountains in India, the Musi Rani Segar was fed by a hillside collection tank and a 900-meter long canal equipped with a sedimentation tank. Anyway, they've got them back up and running. They're going to get a whole bunch more back up this year, and people will have water, good, clean water to drink. And that is something we all should celebrate. Water is so important. Well, and then there's the animal life. Flat-headed cats. I had never heard of such a thing. Seen in Thailand for the first time in 30 years, having been thought extinct. It's interesting. These little creatures obviously were hiding. An endangered small wild cat native to Thailand's wetlands has been sighted for the first time in 30 years. The flat-headed cat has long been feared extinct in the tropical kingdom, where it inhabits peatlands, mangrove forests, and marshes that are difficult to access. The last confirmed sighting was in 1995. Now, 30 years later, the flat-headed cat has surfaced following a camera trap survey in southern Thailand's Princess Swinthorn Wildlife Sanctuary. Here, night vision cameras documented 29 sightings of the animal, which included a female with her kitten. The news was released by the county's Department of Natural Parks, Wildlife and Plant Conservation, along with the world's premier wildcat conservation organization, Panthera. The rediscovery is exciting yet concerning at the same time, because what comes after this is more important: how to enable them to live alongside us sustainably without being threatened. And that's it. We as humans need to look at life and do it differently. Let's create sustainability between plant, animal, human. That's what we need to do. Work together, work together. All right, here's another missing animal. For 200 years, the Galapagos rail reappears following a Floriana Island restoration. What a beautiful bird. Centuries after they were made famous by Charles Darwin, and a century after they had become plagued by invasive rats and cats, the Galapagos Islands are well on their way to recovery. Few events could better capture that recovery than the recent reappearance of the beautiful blue Galapagos rail, a bird which hadn't been seen on Florina Island for 200 years. For almost a decade of preparatory work, invasive rats, avian vampire flies, and domesticated cats were eradicated from the island thanks to the close coordination of several conservation groups around the world working alongside. The cleansing of the island has, to the delight of conservationists and scientists, resulted in a dramatic return for many of these species. So, good news, good news, good news. We love that. Well, here's a little gray seal. A lost gray seal pup was rescued after being netted by fishermen 20 miles away. Look at that little bean. A surprised fisherman hooked an unlikely catch the day after Christmas when he netted a lost seal 20 miles upriver from the coast. The angler was in a rowboat on the river in Norfolk when the gray seal went after his day's catch of fish. The hungry seal looked up at the stunned fisherman from inside the net before he called the rescue charity to come and help. Arriving on the scene, the wildlife charity called the sea mammal significantly underweight and then took it to the RSPCA shelter. The pup, now called Sunshine, likely came from Sea Palling near Horsey Gay, which is home to one of the largest colonies of gray seals in the UK. Around 3,000 pups are born each season, but the charity, Friends of Horsey Seals, said this is one of the strangest seal rescue stories they've seen. Horning is 18 kilometers away over a 5-hour walk from Sea Palling. Chances are that seal didn't come overland. Instead, it probably swam up the river from Great Yarmouth. The distance from Yarmouth to Horning is 20 miles. So, wow, that is quite the deal, isn't it? Look at that cute face. Kind of reminds me of a dog. It's interesting they're called pups. I love that. Well, here we are. We're coming up to the end of the show. And as always, or as we've so this is a really interesting story. I'd like this guy to be my boss for a minute. A boss gifts his employees 240 million in bonuses after selling the family company. Yeah. From Louisiana comes the story of a corporate dream fulfilled as a man succeeded his father as CEO of the family business, invested in innovation which paid off, and guided the business through a big sale. But there was something else that Graham Walker had in his mind to achieve when he prepared to hand over the reins of Fiberbond, the rewarding of his people. Enclosed in the sale agreement was a clause that 15% of the sale price should be paid out over 5 years as bonuses to his 540 employees, amounting to $240 million. Each employee will receive $443,000, according to the Wall Street Journal. I hope I'm 80 years old and get an email about how it's impacted someone, Mr. Walker said. Firebond Fiber Bond was founded by Graham's father, Claude, in 1982. It has gone through boom times and bust times, remaining solvent through a devastating fire and the dot-com bubble. In the mid 2000s, Graham and his brother took charge of the company and in 2020 began to invest in the materials and know how to build data centers. It was a choice that gave the company an early mover advantage, and today the company website states it maintains more than 51,000 modules deployed to projects across the country, making Fiberbond the nation's leading manufacturer of complex electrical modules used in data centers. Following the sale of the company at 1.7 billion to Eaton, a smart power company and client of Fiberbond since 2015, Graham penned an emotional letter. Last week, we gathered together and recognized every Firebond employee, he wrote. We shared the same humbling question. How did we build this? 43 years of memories, failures, successes, and opportunities came forth as tears, hugs, and profound joy. Our family fulfilled a commitment that we would all win together. And over 2 days, we shared details of that commitment. Company employees told the Journal that news of the bonuses were met with shock and emotion, while people saying they'd use the money to pay off student loans, finance retirement, and go on vacation. It was surreal. It was like telling people they won the lottery. There was absolute shock, said Hector Moreno, a Firebond executive who distributed the bonuses, according to the Journal. Well, wouldn't that be a fun job? Giving great big bonuses to people who had no idea it was coming. Well, everybody, it's a new year, it's a new opportunity, and it's time for each and every one of us to remember that we're all connected, that some part of us is some part of everyone. And when we start to realize that every single human being, every being of life is special and unique, like everybody else, we start to realize the importance of how we connect one to the other. I invite you to begin this year with grace, with compassion, with kindness and love for your fellow human, fellow animals, plants. Everything has life in it. Everything comes from the one source. And as we begin to honor it all, we begin to create the opportunity for peace and well-being. I love you, I bless you, and I wish you the most remarkable 2026. Thank you for watching. And now the good news. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to come back again next week when we'll have more of the good news. Bye for now, and many blessings.